the endless debates that rage across the internet, few questions capture the imagination. Quite like this one. What happens when you take a character from one universe and drop them into another? Today, we're going to explore one of the most fascinating matchups in speculative fiction. A warrior who has spent his entire life fighting against fate itself, against gods and demons, armed with nothing but an impossibly large sword and unbreakable will, against one of the greatest warriors ever created in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. A being so perfectly engineered that he stands as the pinnacle of human potential, multiplied 1,000 times over. Guts, the Black Swordsman from Berserk, versus Constantin Valdor, Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes. This isn't just about who would win in a fight. This is about examining what makes these characters work, what their abilities actually mean, and what happens when two different philosophies of power collide. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just who might win, but why these characters represent something deeper about the stories they come from, about human will versus engineered perfection, about rage against destiny versus duty to empire. So let's begin at the beginning. Let's talk about who these warriors really are. Guts is not a superhero. He's not enhanced by super soldier serum or mystical powers. He's not chosen by destiny or blessed by gods. In fact, the universe of Berserk goes out of its way to make it clear that Guts is cursed. Born from the corpse of his hanged mother. Raised by mercenaries, trained to fight from the moment he could hold a sword. Guts' entire existence has been defined by struggle. Not the heroic kind of struggle where victory is assured. The kind where every day is a fight just to survive. When we meet Guts in the Black Swordsman arc, he's hunting demons called apostles, former humans who sacrificed everything they loved to become monsters, and Guts kills them, not with magic, not with divine intervention, with a sword. But what a sword it is. The Dragonslayer is often called a sword, but that's not really accurate. It's a slab of iron. Too thick to be called a blade, too rough to be called a sword. More like a heap of raw iron shaped into something approximating a cutting edge. It's as tall as Guts himself, about 6 feet long, and it weighs approximately 400 pounds. Think about that for a moment. 400 pounds. The average longsword weighs about 3 pounds. A Zweihander, one of the largest practical swords ever used in combat, weighs maybe 8 pounds. The Dragonslayer weighs 50 times that. No human being should be able to lift it, let alone swing it in combat. And yet Guts does. Not just swing it, he swings it fast enough that the manga and anime show it breaking the sound barrier fast enough that it creates shockwaves. How is this possible? The answer is simple and terrifying. Guts has been swinging this sword for so long, fighting so constantly, that his body has adapted beyond normal human limits. His muscles are so dense, so conditioned, that they can generate forces that should tear a normal human apart. But here's the thing. Guts isn't doing this because he's superhuman. He's doing this because he refuses to die. Every swing of the Dragonslayer is an act of defiance against the demons hunting him, against the brand on his neck that marks him for sacrifice, against the very concept of fate itself. We need to talk about what Guts is actually fighting against, because it's not just physical enemies. During an event called the Eclipse, Guts' entire mercenary band was sacrificed by their leader, Griffith, to become a member of the God Hand, essentially archdemons that exist on a higher plane of reality. Guts and his lover Casca were branded with a mark that forever designates them as sacrifices. What this means in practice is that every night when the barriers between worlds are thinnest, demons are drawn to Guts. They hunt him constantly, endlessly. He cannot rest, cannot stop, cannot have a moment of peace without being attacked by things that want to tear him apart. For years, Guts has lived like this, fighting every night, sleeping in short bursts, always moving, always ready. This is why Guts is so dangerous. Not because he is the strongest, not because he is the fastest, but because he has been fighting supernatural horrors every single night for years. And he's still alive. He has learned to fight enemies that are faster than him, stronger than him, enemies that can regenerate, that can fly, that can manipulate reality itself. And he has learned how to kill them anyway. His tactics are brutal and efficient, feints to create openings. Using his prosthetic arm, which conceals both a magnetic mechanism for quick drawing the Dragonslayer and a hand cannon, to blast enemies at point-blank range, sacrificing parts of his own body to land killing blows. Guts doesn't fight fair. He fights to survive. And then there's the Berserker Armor. In the later parts of Berserk, Guts acquires an ancient suit of armor that was created for a singular purpose: to allow its wearer to continue fighting no matter what. The Berserker Armor removes the body's natural limiters, the mechanisms that prevent you from using your full strength, because doing so would tear your muscles or break your bones. When you wear the Berserker Armor, those limiters are gone, but it goes further than that. The armor physically holds broken bones in place, so you can keep fighting. It injects mechanisms into wounds to stop bleeding. It essentially turns the wearer into an undying weapon that cannot be stopped by pain, injury, or even death, as long as the battle continues. The cost is horrific. Every time Guts uses the Berserker Armor, he's destroying his body, breaking bones, tearing muscles, causing internal damage that would kill a normal person. And even though he survives, the damage accumulates. He's going blind in one eye. His body is covered in scars that never fully heal. He's literally killing himself with every fight, but it makes him unstoppable in combat. In the Berserker Armor, Guts has fought entire armies. He has killed massive demons that dwarf him in size. He has carved through enemies that should be impossible for a human to defeat. There's a scene where Guts in the Berserker Armor fights an entity called Grumbeld, a crystal dragon apostle the size of a building. And Guts doesn't just survive, he wounds it, forces it to retreat. This is a creature that could level cities, and Guts made it bleed. So what does Guts actually bring to a fight? First, the Dragonslayer. 400 pounds of iron that moves at supersonic speeds, When this weapon connects, it doesn't cut, it obliterates. We see it cleave through massive demons, through stone pillars, through armor and bone, like they're not even there. The kinetic energy of a 400-pound object moving at the speed of sound is approximately 10 million joules. That's equivalent to about 2.5 kilograms of TNT exploding every single swing. Second, his prosthetic arm. The magnetic mechanism allows for quick draws that even supernatural enemies can't react to in time. The hand cannon fires projectiles powerful enough to blast through demon flesh and armor. It's essentially a handheld ballista. Third, his combat experience. Guts has been fighting since he was 6 years old. He's now in his mid-20s. That's nearly 20 years of constant combat. Against humans, yes, but also against demons. Against reality, bending horrors, against things that shouldn't exist. He knows how to fight enemies faster than him. He learned this fighting wild, an apostle who could move faster than the eye could track. He knows how to fight enemies stronger than him, learning this from fighting Zod, an apostle who has lived for 300 years. He knows how to find weaknesses, exploit openings, and most importantly, he knows how to survive. Fourth, his will. This is the hardest thing to quantify, but it might be his greatest weapon. Guts simply does not stop, does not give up. He has fought with broken bones, with severed tendons, with injuries that should have killed him, and he kept swinging until his enemy was dead. There's a reason the manga is called Berserk. Guts is a berserker in the truest sense. Once he starts fighting, he doesn't stop until either he's dead or his enemy is. Now let's talk about Constantin Valdor. And to understand Valdor, we first need to understand what the Custodian is in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. There are Space Marines, 8-foot-tall super soldiers, enhanced with gene seed that transforms them into living weapons. They are faster and stronger, tougher than any normal human could ever be. As if a single Space Marine can fight off dozens of enemies. They are walking tanks. And the Adeptus Custodes look at Space Marines the way Space Marines look at normal humans. Custodians are not mass-produced like Space Marines. Each one is individually crafted, a unique work of bioalchemy that takes decades to complete. Where a Space Marine is enhanced through surgery and gene seed, a Custodian is rebuilt from the genetic level up. Every cell optimized, every system perfected. The difference in power is staggering. A Space Marine is approximately twice as strong as a peak human and can move faster than the human eye can easily track. A Custodian is significantly stronger and faster than a Space Marine. They're not just better soldiers, they're something beyond human entirely. And Constantin Valdor is the Captain General, the first Custodian, the one who stood at the Emperor's side for centuries before the Imperial even existed, the template from which all other Custodians were derived. Valdor is quite simply one of the greatest warriors in the entire 40k universe. Let's break down what Valdor can actually do. Strength. Valdor can tear apart armored vehicles with his bare hands. He can punch through walls of reinforced ceramite, the material that Space Marine armor is made from. In one account, he lifted and threw a space marine in full armor over 30 feet. That's lifting and throwing approximately 1,200 pounds, like it's a football. Speed. Custodians can react to and track bolt rounds. For context, a bolt round is a self-propelled explosive projectile that travels at supersonic speeds. Valdor can see something moving faster than sound and react to it. His combat speed is described as being so fast that even Space Marines struggle to track his movements. Durability. Valdor wears Auramite armor, the finest armor in the Imperium. It's not just physical protection. It incorporates energy shielding, multiple redundant layers, and materials that can withstand weapons that would vaporize normal matter. He has tanked hits from weapons that could level buildings. Endurance. Custodians can fight for days without rest. They don't need sleep the way humans do. They can operate at peak efficiency for extended periods that would kill even a Space Marine through exhaustion. Reflexes. This is perhaps the most important aspect. Valdor's reaction time is measured in microseconds. He can process tactical information and respond to threats faster than most enemies can even begin their attacks. Valdor's weapon is called the Apollonian Spear, though it's more accurately a Guardian Spear. It's approximately 8 feet long, master-crafted from materials that most of the Imperium couldn't even identify, let alone replicate. The blade can cut through almost anything. It's described as being able to slice through ceramite armor like paper. The edge exists at a molecular level, meaning it can cut between atoms. But the spear has a second function. Built into the haft is a Guardian Spear bolter, essentially a miniature missile launcher. It fires specialized bolts that can penetrate heavy armor before detonating inside the target. Each bolt is a precision-guided munition. The spear gives Valdor reach. He can strike from 8 feet away, well beyond the range of most melee weapons. This is important because it means he can hit enemies before they can hit him. Valdor has been fighting for over 10,000 years. Let that sink in. 10,000 years of combat experience. He was there during the Unification Wars, on Terra, fighting mutants and techno-barbarians. He was there during the Great Crusade, fighting alongside the Emperor to conquer the galaxy. He fought during the Horus Heresy, the greatest civil war in human history, where half the Imperium turned to chaos. He has killed things that shouldn't be able to die. He has fought Prum Arcs, the genetically engineered sons of the Emperor, beings so powerful that they can level armies alone. He has fought greater demons, manifestations of chaos gods that warp reality itself. And he's still alive. In one account, Valdor fought Alfarius, Primarch of the Alpha Legion, and killed him. This is a Primarch, a being that can casually tear through squads of Space Marines, and Valdor killed him. Valdor doesn't just know how to fight. He has literally fought against every type of enemy imaginable. Xenos, chaos, traitors, daemons, psychers, machines. He has developed tactics and strategies for fighting opponents who can teleport, who can see the future, who can warp reality itself. But perhaps Valdor's greatest weapon is his mind. Custodians are not just warriors. They're scholars, philosophers, and strategists. Valdor can assess a battlefield and understand every variable in seconds. He can predict enemy movements, identify weaknesses, and exploit them with surgical precision. He doesn't fight with rage or passion. He fights with cold, calculated efficiency. Every movement is optimized. Every strike is deliberate. There's no wasted motion, no unnecessary risk. Bitte, and he was trained by the Emperor himself, the greatest psyker and general humanity has ever produced. Valdor learned strategy and combat from a being who conquered the galaxy. This is important because it means Valdor doesn't underestimate opponents. He doesn't get cocky or careless. He assesses every threat as if it could kill him and acts accordingly. Before we get into the actual fight, we need to understand what these two characters represent philosophically, because that matters when we're talking about cross-universe matchups. Guts represents earned power. Everything he can do, he learned through suffering, through struggle, through refusing to die when the universe demanded it. His strength comes from his will, from his rage, from his absolute refusal to accept fate. In Berserk, the theme is causality, the idea that everything is predetermined, that fate is a chain that binds everyone, and Guts is the one who breaks that chain through sheer force of will. He's not supposed to be able to kill apostles. He's not supposed to survive the brand. He's not supposed to still be fighting. But he does. Because he chooses to. Valdor represents designed power. He didn't become strong through struggle. He was made strong, crafted from genetic material to be the perfect warrior. His power isn't earned, it's inherent. In Warhammer 40k, the theme is that humanity has fallen from a greater height, that humanity once had the technology and knowledge to create wonders and now can only maintain what they have. Valdor is a relic of that greater age, a perfect creation that cannot be replicated. These are two fundamentally different philosophies of power. And when they clash, what we're really asking is, can will overcome design? Can determination defeat perfection? This is a classic narrative setup. The underdog with everything to prove against the unbeatable champion. But here's where it gets complicated. In Berserk, Guts is the protagonist. The narrative structure demands that he can overcome impossible odds. That's the entire point of his character. He fights things he shouldn't be able to defeat, and he wins because he refuses to lose. In Warhammer 40k, custodians are written to be unbeatable within their context. They are the best of the best. They don't lose to lesser opponents. So what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? The answer depends on which narrative framework you're using. If this is a Berserk story, Guts finds a way to win. If this is a 40k story, Valdor demonstrates why custodians are the Emperor's finest. But we're not writing a story. We're trying to analyze what would actually happen if these characters fought. So we need to look at their actual capabilities, their tactics, their weaknesses, and try to game out the scenarios. The scenario that sparked this entire discussion is specific. Guts versus Valdor. But Valdor doesn't have his Apollonian spear. He's unarmed, at least in terms of his primary weapon. This is important, because it removes Valdor's reach advantage and his ranged capability. The Guardian Spearbolter is a significant threat to Guts, as it could potentially strike him before he closes distance. Without it, Valdor has to fight in close quarters. However, we need to clarify something. Even without his spear, Valdor is not truly unarmed. He wears Auramite armor, which includes powered fists and various integrated weapons. Custodians train extensively in unarmed combat, and Valdor himself has fought barehanded against threats that would terrify most warriors. So this isn't exactly a fair fight for Guts either. It's more balanced than it might otherwise be. But Valdor without his spear is still one of the deadliest beings in the galaxy. For this analysis, let's consider two scenarios: Guts without the Berserker armor and Guts with the Berserker armor, because that makes a significant difference. Environment matters. In a fight like this, are they fighting in an open field, in a corridor, in a ruined city? For the sake of analysis, let's assume neutral ground. An open arena, perhaps 100 feet across. Enough space that neither combatant feels cramped, but not so much space that ranged combat becomes the primary consideration. The ground is solid, providing good footing. No environmental hazards, no interference from outside forces. Just two warriors facing each other. Guts has the Dragonslayer, his prosthetic arm with the hand cannon, and his standard armor. The armor is functional, but not particularly advanced, essentially providing protection against swords and arrows, but not much else. Valdor has his Auramite armor, and whatever weapons are integrated into it, but not the Apollonian spear. Both combatants are aware they're in a fight to the death. No hesitation, no mercy. Now let's analyze how this plays out. Guts would not charge immediately. Despite his reputation as a berserker, he's actually a tactical fighter when he's in control. He would assess Valdor, looking for weaknesses, testing defenses. Valdor would do the same. He would analyze Guts' stance, his weapon, his armor. He would calculate threat levels and formulate a strategy. The first exchange would be Guts feinting with the Dragonslayer, trying to gauge Valdor's reaction speed. And this is where Guts encounters his first problem. Valdor is faster than anything Guts has fought before. Not just in terms of running speed, but reaction speed. When Guts swings, Valdor doesn't just dodge. He dodges before Guts has finished committing to the swing, because he's already calculated this arc, the speed, the potential targets, and moved out of the way. This is something Guts hasn't experienced before. Even the fastest apostles still react to his movements. Valdor is predicting them. Let's say Guts manages to land a hit. The Dragonslayer connects with Valdor's armor. 10 million joules of kinetic energy impacts the Auramite plate. What happens? This is where we get into speculation because we don't have direct comparisons. Auramite armor is designed to withstand weapons that vaporize normal matter. It tanks plasma fire, which operates at temperatures of tens of thousands of degrees. It withstands melt-up weapons, which destroy matter at the molecular level. But the Dragonslayer isn't about heat or molecular disruption. It's about pure blunt force trauma. It's a massive object moving incredibly fast, and when it hits something, it transfers all that energy. There are two possibilities. One, The armor holds. It's designed to withstand impacts. The energy is dispersed across the entire suit. Valdor might be staggered, might even take some internal bruising from the shockwave, but the armor doesn't fail. 2. The armor holds, but the kinetic energy has to go somewhere. It transfers through the armor into Valdor's body. Broken ribs, internal bleeding, not immediately fatal, but serious damage. The question is, can Guts land that hit before Valdor closes the distance and tears him apart? Because that's what Valdor would do. The moment he understands that the Dragonslayer is a genuine threat, he would stop playing defensively. He would close distance and attack with the intent to kill. Custodians in close combat are terrifying. They move faster than most enemies can track. Their strikes are powerful enough to pulp flesh through armor. Their tactics are perfect, exploiting every opening, never giving the opponent time to recover. Guts is tough. He survived wounds that should have killed him, but there's a limit to what the human body can endure, and Valdor hits far harder than anything Guts has experienced from a human-sized opponent. A punch from Valdor, amplified by the power fists of his armor, could shatter bones. A strike could cave in Guts' chest. A grab could crush his skull. And Guts' armor wouldn't help. It's not designed to withstand that level of force. It would crumple like paper. Guts would try to counter. He's excellent at finding openings even against faster opponents. He might be able to use the Dragonslayer's reach to keep Valdor at bay. He might use the hand cannon to create separation, force Valdor to dodge, create opportunities for the Dragonslayer to swing. But the speed difference is the critical factor. Valdor can close distance faster than Guts can retreat, can strike multiple times in the time it takes Guts to swing once. In this scenario, without the Berserker armor, Guts loses 8 times out of 10. Maybe he lands a lucky hit that causes enough damage to slow Valdor down. Maybe his experience fighting faster opponents gives him enough of an edge to create a critical opening. But most likely, Valdor's superior speed, strength, and armor result in Guts being overwhelmed before he can mount an effective offense. Now let's add the Berserker armor into the equation. This changes everything. In the Berserker armor, Guts doesn't fight like a human anymore. He fights like a demon, like a force of nature. Pain doesn't stop him. Injury doesn't slow him. He becomes a weapon that cannot be turned off until either he's dead or his enemies. The moment the armor activates, Guts' combat style changes completely. No more testing, no more feints, just overwhelming aggression. The Dragonslayer becomes a blur of motion, swinging in arcs that would destroy his body if the armor wasn't holding it together. Valdor would immediately recognize the threat level has increased. This is no longer a skilled human with an oversized sword. This is something else. Something that fights with the ferocity of a demon, but the tactical awareness of a warrior. Here's where the Berserker armor makes its greatest impact. Guts stops trying to avoid damage. Against Valdor's speed advantage, Guts can't win a defensive fight. He can't dodge everything. He can't block everything. But in the Berserker armor, he doesn't have to. He can trade wounds, let Valdor hit him, let Valdor break his ribs, shatter his arm, crack his skull. As long as the armor holds him together, he keeps fighting. And all he needs is one clean hit with the Dragonslayer. This is a tactic that would be suicidal against most opponents. But against Valdor, it's the only tactic that has a chance of working. Because Valdor is used to opponents who fear injury, who try to defend themselves, who slow down when wounded. Guts in the Berserker armor doesn't do that. He gets faster, more aggressive, more dangerous. It's the opposite of everything Valdor has been trained to expect. The math of mutual destruction. 56 minutes to 58 minutes. Let's game out the most likely scenario with the Berserker armor. Valdor and Guts exchange blows. Valdor lands multiple hits, each one causing catastrophic damage. Broken bones, ruptured organs, damage that would drop a normal person instantly. But the armor holds Guts together, forces his body to keep functioning, and Guts keeps swinging. Then the Dragonslayer connects. Not a glancing blow, not a deflection. A full power overhead swing. 400 pounds of iron moving at supersonic speed, impacting Valdor's helmet or shoulder. The armor holds, but the energy has to go somewhere. It transfers through the armor. Valdor's collarbone shatters. His ribs crack. Internal organs are damaged from the shockwave. For the first time in the fight, Valdor is seriously injured, and Guts doesn't stop. The Berserker armor doesn't allow him to stop. He swings again and again, each impact causing more damage, even if the armor doesn't fully fail. Meanwhile, Valdor is still landing hits. Guts' body is being destroyed. His spine is cracking from the strain the armor puts on it. His muscles are tearing. He's bleeding internally. This becomes a race. Who dies first? The genetically engineered perfect warrior in the finest armor in the galaxy? Or the human whose body is literally killing itself to keep fighting? In this scenario, with the Berserker armor, Guts' chances improve dramatically. Maybe 3 out of 10. Maybe 4 out of 10. Because there exists a possibility, a real possibility, where Guts lands enough hits to kill Valdor before his own body completely breaks down. But it's still unlikely. The problem is that even with the Berserker armor, Guts is still fundamentally human. His bones can only take so much stress before they pulverize into dust. His organs can only endure so much trauma before they fail completely. The armor can hold him together, but it can't make him unkillable. Valdor, on the other hand, is built to survive. His redundant organs mean he can lose one lung and keep fighting. His enhanced bone structure means even fractures don't stop him. His pain tolerance is superhuman to begin with. The most likely outcome is that both combatants are grievously wounded, but Valdor manages to land the killing blow before Guts' body completely fails. Maybe he crushes Guts' skull. Maybe he tears out his throat, something that even the Berserker armor can't keep functioning through. But there's that small chance, that 4 in 10, where Guts, through sheer determination and the Berserker armor's refusal to let him die, lands enough Dragonslayer strikes to kill Valdor first. And then, moments later, Guts would collapse. His body would shut down. The armor would release its grip, and he would die from his injuries. Mutual destruction. Both warriors dead on the field. In a strange way, That might be the most appropriate outcome. Neither warrior truly defeats the other. They destroy each other through sheer commitment to victory. So, what have we learned from this analysis? First, cross-universe power scaling is inherently flawed because different universes operate on different rules. Berserk is grounded in a more realistic, if fantastical, framework. Warhammer 40k operates on a scale where planets are routinely destroyed and gods literally exist. Trying to compare them directly is like trying to compare physics equations from two different models of the universe. You can make approximations, but there's no perfect answer. Second, combat ability isn't just about raw power. It's about tactics, experience, equipment, and circumstances. In different scenarios with different parameters, the outcome changes. If this fight happened in a narrow corridor, where Valdor couldn't use his superior mobility, God's chances improve. If it happened in an open field, where Valdor could kite Guts with ranged attacks, Guts' chances plummet. Third, and perhaps most importantly, thus characters represent different philosophies of storytelling. Guts exists to show that human will can overcome impossible odds. Valdor exists to show the pinnacle of engineered perfection. They're not meant to be compared because they serve different narrative purposes. If you forced me to give a definitive answer, here it is. Without the Berserker Armor, Valdor wins 9 times out of 10. The speed and durability advantage is simply too great. Guts might land lucky hits, he might wound Valdor, but he can't overcome the fundamental gulf in capabilities. With the Berserker Armor, Valdor still wins 6 or 7 times out of 10. But now there's a real possibility of mutual destruction, or even Guts pulling out a victory through sheer bloody-minded refusal to die. The most thematically appropriate outcome. Both warriors fight to their absolute limits, both are mortally wounded, and both die on the battlefield, neither willing to surrender, neither able to overcome the other. Because that's what these characters are ultimately about. Not winning, but refusing to stop fighting until the very end. Why do we spend time on questions like this? Why do we debate fictional characters fighting each other? Because these characters mean something to us. They represent ideals. Guts represents the indomitable human spirit. Valdor represents the peak of human achievement. When we pit them against each other, we're really asking deeper questions. Can will overcome design? Can determination defeat perfection? Is there value in the struggle itself, even if victory is impossible? These are questions worth asking. And while we might not find perfect answers, the discussion itself has value. Guts versus Constantin. Valdor is more than just a versus debate. It's a thought experiment about power, determination, and what makes warrior truly dangerous. In pure stats, Valdor is superior. He's faster, stronger, more durable, better equipped, and has vastly more experience. On paper, he should win easily. But Guts has something that can't be quantified on a stat sheet. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. The willingness to destroy himself if it means taking his enemy with him. The kind of determination that has let him survive in a universe that has been trying to kill him for his entire life. That's not enough to guarantee victory, but it's enough to make the fight interesting, to create scenarios where the impossible becomes merely improbable. If this fight happened in a Berserk manga, Guts would find a way to win, because that's what Guts does. He defeats impossible enemies through tactics, determination, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to die. If this fight happened in a Warhammer 40k novel, Valdor would demonstrate why Custodians are the Emperor's finest. He would acknowledge Guts as a worthy opponent, perhaps even respect his skill, and then kill him with the cold efficiency that 10,000 years of combat has perfected. But we're not writing a story, we're analyzing capabilities. And based on that analysis, Valdor wins most scenarios. Not all, but most. The question isn't really who wins. The question is, what does it say about these characters that the fight would be close at all? Guts is a baseline human who, through sheer determination and experience, can fight against one of the greatest warriors in the Warhammer 40k universe and have a chance.